Lexi was running the mile at school and passed out.
It happened in 8th grade. Usually I'm always tired, but this time it was different. And then as I was walking back to the blacktop, I knew that I was gonna pass out.
She ended up passing out and her face hit the blacktop. I remember picking her up and she had asphalt in her teeth.
And then she passed out again right after dancing.
Her pediatrician said, you know, her EKG looks very strange.
So he said, I know it seems like overkill, but I'm gonna refer you to two specialists, Dr. Mandapati and Dr. Bach. It was Dr. Bach who, after examining her and seeing what Dr. Mandapati found, they discussed it. And Dr. Bach said, Lexi has something called restrictive cardiomyopathy.
The main component of restrictive cardiomyopathy is that the heart is unable to relax, which raises the pressures inside the heart and leads to heart failure.
He said the only way for her to survive is a heart transplant.
What broke my heart was my daughter and her having to deal with this at such a young age.
All throughout high school I was gonna dance and I was gonna be on the dance team, but then when I was told that I couldn't, it was really frustrating and I was disappointed.
So several months later, she began developing symptoms that weren't quite normal. She was having more events where she was feeling like she was going to pass out and having episodes of chest pain. And finally, one morning, a big event happened.
So I'd usually just poke my head and say, Lex, time to get up. But this time I looked at her, she just looked off. I think it's just a mother's intuition. When I looked at her face, it was gray. She looked like she'd been gone for a long time. It's just that surreal moment where I'm like, Lexi, wake up, wake up. The other two girls heard me crying and, yelling, wake up, wake up. And they're yelling, Lexi, wake up, wake up. She was like a rock, just, rag doll.
And so I ran to Lexi's room and she was lying on the bed and she was ashen. I'd like to say she was blue. As far as I was concerned, she had passed away and didn't know how long it had been. So I did CPR for several minutes and then the paramedics arrived. During that period, I remember it was almost just a pattern of dismay. Nothing was working. And I just kept thinking, she's gone. We lost her. This can't possibly be true. I'm crying again. So it was very difficult to see. But I remember that the personnel that were working with her, they did not give up. They kept on going. And I thank the Lord for them. And I could see the interaction between them, and I could see one of them, they would try things and then they'd try something else and then they'd look at each other and they'd shake their head, it's not working. And then all of a sudden, I'll never forget, he looked up to me and he gave me a thumbs up. And all of a sudden, you wouldn't believe when your heart is looking for hope, that little glimmer of hope can do a tremendous amount.
Lexi's condition was critical. She was soon transported to Loma Linda University Children's Hospital.
I started compressions on her, and soon after the parents arrived, the mom is yelling, Lexi, you're strong, fight Lexi, fight. And so as we're doing compressions, I'm like, God, I'm pressing on her chest and I'm like, God, please don't do it. And that was the day that we put her on ECMO.
ECMO is a form of temporary life support called extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, where the blood is literally pumped out of the body through a pump and an oxygenation machine before it's returned to the body.
ECMO is a very dangerous thing to be on because there's such risk of clotting, and I believe she went through several units of blood while she was on ECMO.
Unfortunately, she developed a severe complication of that, and a ventricular assist device, or another type of heart pump that just takes over for the heart, was placed.
We were doing multiple things on trying to keep her from having these rhythms, and putting her into a medical-induced coma was one of many things that we had to do.
Unfortunately, she still went into bad rhythms where her heart was unsupported despite the device and required over 200 shocks over the course of the next month with a defibrillator device.
It was very traumatic. It was difficult to see that. Just so many different occurrences where she could have lost her life.
Finally, the day came where we got the wonderful news that a heart was available for Lexi. I called her mom and dad, and
I was so in shock, like, what? I turned to the nurses, I said, they were like, what's wrong? And I said, they have a heart for Lexi. And they were like, what? Oh my gosh. They started crying, and then they got in gear.
I saw her father as we were walking into the unit, and we were all excited and hugging the parents and just, you know, very happy and elated for them and elated for Lexi.
we prepared Lexi then to go to the operating room for her transplant, and because we were using a new form of anticoagulation, it was unclear how much she would need to perform the heart operation itself. But this was too much for Lexi. She had an enormous amount of bleeding after the transplant and required 40 units or more of blood that LifeStream provided. This was essential to save her life at that time.
Those surgeons sat down there in the OR with her for hours after the heart transplant was done, waiting for her blood to start coagulating. And during that time, she went through multiple units of blood. And so thankful to LifeStream blood donors who were a part of that. Once again, every little part is a part of her story. And that blood donation is what kept her alive even after the surgery was over. And then I got to see what a heartbeat actually is supposed to look like.
I woke up and then I was really confused about where I was, and I saw that I was in a hospital. So immediately I was like, oh, am I gonna need a heart transplant? And my dad looked at me, he said, you already had it. I was mostly overcome with joy, and I started crying because something that I had been so scared for, it already passed.
I remember constantly seeing units of blood hanging there. I didn't realize how many units of blood people actually go through when they're going through something like that. And that blood was her connection to life.
Without the donations from the LifeStream donors, Lexi wouldn't have made it that day.
Lexi needed, like I said, multiple units of LifeStream blood products to sustain her well-being. 1,000 thank yous wouldn't even be enough.
We appreciate you donating every day, as many times as you can, going out there, raising awareness for our cause, and providing the life-saving blood that you give.
Including her surgery and pre- and post-operative care, Lexi required 44 pints of red blood cells, 19 units of plasma, 8 units of platelets, and 6 units of cryoprecipitate.
Thank you, LifeStream blood donors, for all that you did and for saving my life along with many others.
LifeStream. Give hope. Give life. Give blood.